Queen Lyra, of the Xylar Kingdom, stood at the center of her shining command hall, watching the stars outside twist with sudden flashes of light. Her world, once peaceful and full of bright energy, now shook from the force of a surprise attack. The Drakari Empire, a rival power known for their strict rule and sharp methods, had launched a sudden assault without warning. Their ships tore through the sky, like burning arrows. For years, the Xylar believed the Drakari would never dare to attack their capital. Their cities were advanced, their shields strong, and their citizens loyal. But this attack came too fast, too fierce, and too unexpected. Even Lyra, a queen known for her calm mind, felt a heavy weight inside her chest. "Your Majesty, the Drakari fleet is pushing toward the palace," her commander said, voice shaking. "We cannot stop them." Lyra raised her chin. Her eyes, silver like moonlight, stayed steady even as alarms echoed through the halls. "Then we protect as many people as we can. Begin evacuation routes. Guide the citizens to the deep shelters." Her guards saluted and hurried to carry out her order. Lyra placed a hand on the glowing control table. The map showed her homeworld covered in red markers, each one a sign of an attack. She felt a sharp worry not for herself, but for her people. Suddenly, an explosion struck the palace. The floor shook. The lights flickered. A blast door shut behind Lyra as the system reacted to protect the room. But another shockwave hit, harder than the last, sending her backward. She fell against the metal surface. Pain ran through her side as a long crack split across the command hall ceiling. Her guards rushed toward her, then the entire hall tilted as the structure began to collapse. "Your Majesty!" one shouted, reaching forward. But a falling beam crashed between them, separating the queen from her protectors. Dust filled the air. Sparks burst from broken wires. Lyra pushed herself up, coughing, her uniform torn and her arm aching. She was alone, and the enemy was closing in. Outside the palace, the battle grew louder. Drakari soldiers pushed through the outer walls. Their ships circled the sky, blocking escape paths. Lyra had no weapon, no escort, and only minutes before the attackers reached her location. Still, she did not panic. She moved toward the emergency beacon, struggling but determined. She pressed her hand against the screen and sent a distress signal into space. It was simple, short, and desperate. "This is Queen Lyra. I am trapped. Assistance required." She did not expect a reply. The Xylar fleet was already busy defending the planet. Far above the chaos, in the quiet of outer space, a small human fighter ship glided past the edge of the system. Inside sat Captain Jackson Rell, a skilled human pilot known for his brave actions and strong sense of justice. His mission that day was peaceful, just a standard patrol to watch for cosmic storms and ship movements. Jackson leaned back in his chair, tapping the screen. "Another quiet day," he said to himself. "Not bad." Then his ship beeped sharply. A distress signal appeared. He frowned. "A distress call? Out here?" The signal repeated, "Queen Lyra. Trapped. Require assistance." Jackson's eyes widened. A queen was asking for help. A whole planet was under attack. His orders were to avoid getting involved in alien conflicts. But he could hear the fear and urgency in the broken message. He sat still for a long second, thinking. He remembered his training. He remembered the rules. But he also remembered something stronger, the belief that no one should be left alone in danger if he could help. "All right," he whispered. "I can't ignore this." He switched off the patrol route and powered his engines toward the Xylar homeworld. As he got closer, he saw burning ships, falling debris, and bright red blasts crossing the sky. The planet's surface glowed with damage. His ship shook as he flew through the scattered wreckage. "This is bad," he muttered, adjusting the controls. "Really bad." Most pilots would turn around. The battle was too large, too dangerous for one small human ship. But Jackson focused on the distress signal, tracing its location. His hands moved quickly as he avoided enemy fire and dodged broken metal. He finally pushed through the atmosphere, the heat glowing against his ship. What he saw below shocked him. The capital city of the Xylar kingdom was burning. The royal palace, once bright and tall, was broken in the center. "Hang on, whoever you are," he said. "I'm coming." Inside the shattered hall, Queen Lyra pressed herself against a wall. She could hear heavy footsteps outside the door. The Drakari soldiers were close. She touched her side. The pain made her wince, but she kept her eyes forward. Then, above the palace, a human fighter dropped through a gap in the smoke. Jackson's ship landed hard beside the ruins, kicking dust into the air. He jumped out, scanning the area. "Queen Lyra?" he called. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The voice was not Xylar. It was not Drakari. It was something she had never expected. A human voice. "I am here," she shouted, gathering her strength. Jackson followed the sound, pushing aside fallen beams until he found her trapped behind a piece of metal. Her silver eyes looked up at him, surprised but hopeful. "You're human," she said softly. "Yeah," he replied with a small smile. "And I'm here to help." Before they could speak more, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. The Drakari soldiers had arrived. Jackson quickly helped Lyra stand. "We need to move. Now." Together, they rushed through the broken hall as shadows approached from behind. Lyra leaned on Jackson, trusting him even though she knew almost nothing about humans. As they reached the exit, Jackson looked back at the destroyed palace and whispered, "Don't worry. You're not alone anymore." And with that, the human fighter and the alien queen escaped into the burning city, their fates now tied together. Jackson and Queen Lyra moved carefully through the ruined streets of the Xylar capital. Smoke rose from the collapsed buildings, and red flashes from Drakari lasers lit up the dark sky. The city that had once gleamed with silver towers now lay in chaos, broken by war. Lyra stumbled on a piece of rubble. Jackson caught her arm quickly. "Careful," he said, his voice firm but calm. "We need to get to the evacuation tunnels. They'll be safer there." She nodded, pain clear in her silver eyes. She had never felt so weak, so vulnerable, yet the presence of this human fighter gave her a strange sense of hope. "Lead the way," she said. They moved fast but quietly, trying to avoid the Drakari patrols. Around them, the citizens of Xylar fought bravely, using whatever weapons they had to defend their homes. Despite the terror, Lyra could not help but notice the courage of her people. They did not surrender, even when hope seemed lost. Jackson scanned the streets. "We'll have to cross the plaza," he said. "It's open, but I have an idea." He pointed to a half-collapsed building nearby. "We can use that to get some cover. Then we run straight to the tunnels." Lyra's gaze followed him. "You're brave, human," she said quietly. Jackson gave a small smile. "I don't see you as a stranger. You're a queen, and no one should be left to die while I can help." For a moment, Lyra felt a warmth inside. Humans, they were unpredictable, strange, and fragile, yet somehow stronger than most aliens she had met. A loud explosion shook the plaza. Drakari soldiers had spotted them. Red laser fire streaked toward their hiding spot. Jackson grabbed Lyra's hand. "Now! Run!" They sprinted across the rubble-strewn plaza, diving behind walls and fallen statues. Jackson's human reflexes allowed him to dodge fire with precision, while Lyra struggled but kept moving, driven by the urgency of survival. Halfway across, a Drakari soldier aimed directly at them. Jackson shouted, "Cover me!" He threw a small flare that exploded in a bright flash, temporarily blinding the enemy. Lyra stumbled, but Jackson caught her just in time. They reached the half-collapsed building and ducked inside. Dust fell from the ceiling, but it gave them a moment of cover. Lyra leaned against a wall, breathing heavily. "You are remarkable, human," she said, her voice shaking. Jackson shook his head. "I'm just doing what I can. But we need to keep moving. The tunnels are not far, and they might still be safe." As they approached the entrance to the underground tunnels, Jackson noticed something. A Drakari patrol had set up a trap at the tunnel entrance. "They're waiting for us," he muttered. Lyra's eyes widened. "Then we must distract them. I will not be captured alive." Jackson shook his head. "No, you're not going to fight alone. We do this together." He looked around quickly and found an old, broken transport vehicle nearby. With careful timing, he pushed it toward the patrol's path. The vehicle toppled, making a loud crash that drew the Drakari's attention. Go now," he yelled. Lyra and Jackson ran into the tunnel, their boots echoing on the metal floor. Behind them, shouts and footsteps followed. The tunnel was dark, but Jackson used a small, portable light to guide them. "This way," he said, leading her deeper into the labyrinth. "These tunnels are old, but they can hide us from the patrols for now." Lyra noticed the walls were covered with ancient Xylar symbols. "These tunnels, they have protected our people for centuries," she said. "I never realized how important they are." Jackson nodded. "Well," they moved further, finally reaching a small chamber that had not been damaged. Lyra sank to the floor, exhausted. Jackson knelt beside her, checking her injuries. "You're hurt badly," he said. "I need to clean and bandage that wound." Lyra shook her head. "You risk too much for me. I cannot let you." "Stop talking," Jackson interrupted gently. "Right now, I'm the one in charge of keeping you alive." He worked quickly, using his limited supplies to clean the wound and wrap it securely. Lyra watched him, impressed by how calm and precise he was. Even in the middle of a war zone, his mind stayed clear. "Humans are clever," she admitted softly. "I underestimated your kind." Jackson smiled faintly. "Clever, yes, but also stubborn, and sometimes reckless. You'll see a lot of that today." The tunnel shook suddenly. Jackson stood quickly. "They're close," he said. "We need to move deeper. There's another chamber that might be safer." Lyra gritted her teeth. "Lead the way, human. I will follow." As they moved, Jackson observed the Drakari patrols above. They were well trained, but their movements were predictable. Using his knowledge of tactics and strategy, he led Lyra through hidden passageways, avoiding enemy detection. Finally, they reached a large underground cavern. Stalactites hung from the ceiling, and a small underground river flowed through it. The water reflected faint light, giving the space an eerie but calming glow. "This should be safe for now," Jackson said. "We can rest here, plan our next move." Lyra sat by the water, breathing heavily. She looked at the human beside her, seeing courage, determination, and compassion, all in one being. "You have given me life," she said softly. Jackson shrugged. "I haven't done anything yet. We're just getting started. But don't worry, Queen Lyra. I will not let you die, not here. Not ever." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the faint sounds of the river and the distant echoes of the battle above. Outside, the world burned. But inside this cavern, a fragile hope began to grow. Lyra thought of her people, her kingdom, and the courage of a single human who risked everything to save her. Somehow, she knew that with him by her side, she might survive this attack and perhaps even turn the tide. Jackson looked at her, his expression serious. "Rest now. We'll move again soon. But remember, we're in this together." Lyra nodded. "Together," she agreed. Above them, the sounds of war continued. But in the quiet cavern, two unlikely allies prepared for the fight ahead. One a queen facing death, the other a human willing to give everything to save her. The underground cavern was quiet, except for the soft trickle of the river. Queen Lyra leaned against a smooth rock, her silver eyes reflecting the faint light. Her wound, though bandaged by Jackson, still throbbed, painfully. But for the first time in hours, she felt a small measure of safety. Jackson sat across from her, cleaning his makeshift tools. He had little supplies, but his focus never wavered. "We'll have to move again soon," he said. "The Drakari won't stop hunting you. They'll search every tunnel, every shadow. But we can use that to our advantage." Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "You risk so much for a being you barely know. Humans are strange. And yet, you are remarkable." Jackson gave a small smile. "Maybe. But courage is not strange. It's what anyone should have when someone else's life is in danger." Lyra felt something warm in her chest. Humans were different from Xylar. They were smaller, weaker, yet somehow stronger in ways she did not understand. Their strength was not only physical, it was in their mind, their spirit, and their will to act when others might stand back. A soft rumble shook the cavern. Jackson stood quickly, eyes scanning the dark passageways. "They're close," he muttered. "We need to make a plan. If we go straight, we might walk into a patrol. But if we use the side tunnels, we can strike at them when they least expect it." Lyra struggled to rise, her strength limited. "Then I will follow you. Wherever you lead, I will go. I cannot survive alone." Jackson extended his hand to her. "Good. We work together. Always." They moved silently through the side passages. The tunnels twisted and turned like a labyrinth, but Jackson's sharp eyes found weak points and blind spots. He led Lyra deeper, keeping her safe from the Drakari soldiers searching above. At one narrow corridor, they paused. Ahead, the faint sound of Drakari boots echoed. Jackson crouched low and whispered, "We'll have to ambush them. If we are clever, we can scare them off long enough to escape." Lyra's eyes widened. "Ambush? I have no weapons." Jackson shook his head. "You don't need weapons for this. Just stay behind me and trust me." He picked up a loose rock from the ground and threw it down a side passage. The sound of it clattering echoed through the tunnels. Drakari soldiers turned instinctively toward the noise. "Now!" Jackson whispered. He ran through the corridor, dragging Lyra with him. As they passed the soldiers, he kicked another rock toward their feet, tripping one of them. The others shouted and aimed their weapons, but Jackson led Lyra through a small opening that they had discovered earlier. Breathing heavily, Lyra stopped to look back. The Drakari soldiers were confused, searching for them in the wrong tunnels. "You are incredible," she said. "Humans are clever in ways we cannot imagine." Jackson nodded, not letting his guard down. "Clever. Yes, but also fast. And sometimes reckless. You'll see more of that today." They continued deeper, reaching a small chamber where the tunnel split into two. Jackson paused, listening. "The patrol is above us. If we take the left path, we can reach the maintenance area. From there, I can guide us to a hidden lift that goes to the surface outside the city." Lyra studied the map of the tunnels etched faintly on the wall. "I had no idea these tunnels were so complex," she said. "They are a marvel of engineering." Jackson smiled faintly. "Good engineering helps, but quick thinking helps more. Follow me." They moved carefully, using shadows and narrow walls for cover. At one point, a small cave-in blocked their path. Jackson did not hesitate. Using a piece of broken metal, he pried away the rubble, clearing a small path just wide enough for Lyra to pass. "You do everything yourself," she said, admiration in her voice. "Your mind, your hands, they are both weapons." Jackson shrugged. I've had to learn. When you're human, you adapt or you die. But enough talking, we need to keep moving. They reached the maintenance area. It was dark, filled with old machinery and unused transport vehicles. Jackson examined a control panel. This lift, it's still operational. But we'll have to move carefully. One wrong step, and it could collapse. Lyra looked at him. I trust you. Jackson gave her a small nod. Good. That will keep you alive. He activated the lift, and it hummed to life. The doors opened slowly, revealing a dimly lit shaft. Jackson helped Lyra inside. Hold on tight, he said. As the lift began to rise, the distant sounds of battle echoed faintly through the walls. The Drakari were relentless, but Jackson's calm determination kept Lyra safe. Suddenly, the lift jerked violently. Lyra gripped the railing. What is happening? She asked, fear in her voice. Jackson scanned the controls. A minor blockage in the shaft. Stay calm. I'll fix this. He crawled along the narrow edge, adjusting the mechanism with steady hands. Sparks flew, but he did not falter. Lyra watched in awe. Humans were fragile, yes, but their spirit, their courage, it was unmatched. Finally, the lift resumed its smooth ascent. They reached the top, emerging into the outskirts of the city. Smoke and fire still burned in the distance, but the immediate danger had passed. Lyra looked around. We are still alive, she said, relief washing over her. Thanks to you. Jackson smiled faintly. We're not done yet, but we have a chance now. That's all that matters. For the first time, Lyra felt a deep respect for humans. They were unpredictable, sometimes reckless, yet their hearts were filled with courage and determination. One human could change the outcome of a battle, could save a life, and perhaps even change the fate of a planet. Jackson led her toward a small safe house hidden among the outskirts. We'll rest here for a while, he said. Plan the next move. Then we strike back. Together. Lyra nodded. Together, she repeated, feeling a new strength rising inside her. Above them, the city still burned. The Drakari still searched. But in that quiet moment, in the shadows of the ruins, a human and an alien queen prepared to face whatever came next. And the spirit of one human fighter shone brighter than any fire, giving hope to a queen who had faced death and refused to surrender. The safe house was quiet, hidden in the shadows of the ruined city outskirts. Broken walls and rubble surrounded it. But inside, the space was intact. Jackson helped Queen Lyra settle on a raised platform, where she could rest without sitting on the cold floor. You should rest, Jackson said. Your wound needs time. You're still weak. Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting both exhaustion and admiration. You care for me, as if I were one of your own people, she said softly. It is difficult to understand. Why do you risk everything? Jackson shrugged. Because it's the right thing to do. I've learned that being brave isn't about strength, it's about action. You do what you can to help someone else, even if it's dangerous. See? Lyra leaned back, studying him. His calm face, his steady hands, the way he thought quickly under pressure, it impressed her. Xylar leaders were trained in strategy and diplomacy, but humans acted with courage that came from the heart, not from training. For a long moment, they sat in silence. Outside, the distant sounds of Drakari pursuit faded, but the weight of the attack remained. Lyra could feel it in every vibration of the ruined city, in every faint tremor under her feet. Finally, she spoke. I underestimated humans, she admitted. I thought your kind would flee from danger, or follow orders without thought. But you are different. Jackson gave a small smile. We can surprise people sometimes. But don't forget you're a queen. You have to survive. That's your duty. And I'll help, however I can. Lyra nodded, feeling a strange warmth inside. Trust was not easy for her. Her people depended on her, and betrayal had come too often in her life. Yet this human, she could feel she could trust him completely. After a brief rest, Jackson began checking their small supplies. The safe house was simple, some food rations, water, and old tools left behind by previous inhabitants. He turned to Lyra. We can't stay here forever. The Drakari will search every building. We need a plan to strike back. Lyra stood slowly, using the railing for support. Then, we must act. I will not allow my people to suffer while I hide. Jackson nodded. Good. That's the spirit. But we have to be careful. They have numbers. We have brains and courage. That's our advantage. He mapped out the city ruins on a portable panel, marking Drakari patrol paths and weak points. Lyra watched closely, her mind working to understand his strategy. Humans fought differently from Xylar. They relied on unpredictability, improvisation, and speed. You fight with your mind as much as your weapons, she observed. I see now why you survived so far. You are clever. Jackson smiled faintly. Clever enough. But smart planning is nothing without courage. We'll need both. The night passed slowly. They kept watch, taking turns resting. Jackson taught Lyra how to move silently through the rubble, how to use shadows and cover to their advantage. She picked up quickly, her royal training helping her adapt to his human methods. When dawn came, the city was quiet. Smoke still rose from distant fires, but the immediate threat seemed smaller. Jackson led Lyra to a high vantage point, where they could see the city and the approaching Drakari forces. They've regrouped, he said. They think we're hiding somewhere else. That's our chance. Lyra nodded. Then we must strike, before they realize we are ready. They returned to the safe house to gather what supplies they could carry: small weapons, tools, and a few rations. Lyra handled the weapons clumsily at first, but Jackson guided her patiently. He showed her how to aim, how to move, and how to rely on her instincts. You are learning fast, he said. You might not be human, but your courage matches any human I've seen. Lyra smiled faintly. And you teach without fear. That is rare among strangers. Together, they moved out. Jackson led the way, scanning the streets and using the shadows for cover. Lyra followed, steady despite her injuries, trusting him completely. They reached the edge of a Drakari command post, a tall, dark tower where enemy leaders coordinated the attack. Jackson crouched beside Lyra. This is where we can make a difference. If we can disrupt their command, the rest of the forces will be confused. We have one shot. Lyra's eyes glimmered with determination. The human and the queen moved silently, approaching the tower. Jackson used his tools to hack a small security panel, opening a side door. They slipped inside, unseen by the enemy. The corridors were dim and cold, echoing with the distant commands of Drakari soldiers. As they advanced, they encountered a patrol. Jackson whispered, "Leave them to me. Just stay behind and watch my back." He acted quickly, throwing a small device that emitted a bright flash and loud sound. The patrol was momentarily blinded and disoriented. Lyra followed his lead, moving swiftly and silently past them. Finally, they reached the control room. Drakari officers were monitoring the city's defense grids. Jackson looked at Lyra. "Ready?" She nodded. Together, they acted. Jackson disabled the main communication panel, sending false orders to the enemy fleet. Lyra helped by blocking reinforcements in the hallways outside. The Drakari soldiers, confused and misled, began to retreat from the areas they controlled. From the high vantage point outside the control room, Lyra could see the change in the city. Her people, inspired by sudden openings and enemy confusion, fought back with renewed strength. Humans and Xylar alike had a chance to reclaim the city. Jackson turned to Lyra. "See? Courage and brains make a difference. One human and one queen can change the tide of a battle." Lyra looked at him, her heart filled with respect. "You have taught me something important. Humans are not just strong in body, but in spirit. I trust you completely, Jackson. And I will follow your lead." He gave a faint smile. "And I'll make sure you survive. No one should face death alone." For the first time since the attack began, Lyra felt hope not just for herself, but for her kingdom. Together, with this human fighter at her side, she knew they could turn the war around. And somewhere deep inside her, a quiet thought echoed. The spirit of humans was more powerful than any weapon she had ever known. The city burned like a storm of fire and smoke, but Queen Lyra and Captain Jackson Rell stood on a high ledge, watching the chaos below. The Drakari forces were confused, their soldiers scattered by the false orders Jackson had sent through the command system. Lyra's silver eyes scanned the horizon. She could see her people rallying, inspired by the sudden opportunity. The Xylar warriors fought with renewed courage, their energy shining bright despite the destruction. But the Drakari flagship still hovered above the city, a dark shadow that threatened to crush everything. Jackson looked at her. "We need to end this now. Their command ship controls the rest of their fleet. Take it down, and the battle is ours." Lyra's gaze met his. "And you will come with me?" He shook his head. "No, this one is my mission. You need to lead your people while I draw the Drakari away. It will be dangerous, but if I succeed, we win." Lyra's heart tightened. "Do not underestimate yourself, Jackson. Humans are unpredictable, but I have seen your courage. Go." With a firm nod, Jackson sprinted toward the small fighter bay they had discovered. He climbed into a compact, fast-moving ship. Lyra watched as he rose into the smoky sky, small but determined, heading straight for the enemy flagship. The Drakari noticed him immediately. Their weapons targeted his ship, lasers streaking across space. But Jackson moved with skill, weaving through fire and debris. He released small decoys, causing confusion among the enemy sensors. Inside the flagship, alarms blared. The Drakari officers shouted orders, but the messages were false. Thanks to Jackson's earlier sabotage, the fleet above the city faltered. Xylar warriors seized the moment, pushing forward and reclaiming strategic points. Jackson gritted his teeth as he approached the flagship. He knew this would be the most dangerous moment of his life. But he thought of Lyra, her people, and the courage that had inspired him to act. He could not fail. He fired a series of precision shots at the control panels near the ship's core. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and a blast of energy shook the vessel. Drakari soldiers scrambled, trying to regain control. Back on the ground, Lyra watched the flagship struggle. Her heart pounded. The human fighter had risked everything, and the fate of her kingdom now rested on his skill and courage. Inside the ship, Jackson pushed the controls to the limit. He guided the vessel through narrow corridors and past defense turrets, using speed and intelligence instead of raw power. Every move was precise, calculated, and dangerous. Finally, he reached the main reactor. He planted a small charge designed to disable the ship without destroying it completely enough to prevent further attacks and give the Xylar people a chance to secure victory. The explosion rocked the flagship. Lights flickered, systems failed, and the ship began to drift uncontrollably. Jackson launched out of the ship just in time, racing back toward the city as debris rained down. Lyra's eyes widened with relief. "He did it," she whispered. "He saved us." The Drakari forces, leaderless and disorganized, began to retreat. Xylar warriors cheered, reclaiming the streets and fortifying their positions. The city, though damaged, was safe. Jackson's ship landed near the safe house. He stepped out, exhausted, but alive. Lyra ran to him, her arms wrapping around his shoulders in gratitude. "You risked everything," she said, voice trembling. "I do not know how to repay you." Jackson smiled faintly. "No repayment needed. Just see your people safe, that's enough." Lyra looked at him, her heart full of respect and admiration. "You are not just brave. You are remarkable. Humans are stronger than I ever imagined. One life, one soul, can change the fate of many." Jackson shrugged. "Sometimes, it takes one person to make a difference. And sometimes, it takes trust. You trusted me. And together, we made it work." The Queen stepped back slightly, studying him. "You have my gratitude, Captain Jackson Rell, and the gratitude of every Xylar alive today. Humanity has proven itself a friend and a warrior, unlike any other." Jackson smiled. "Then our alliance is strong. That is enough for me." Lyra raised her hand, signaling to her people. The citizens cheered, lifting their voices in celebration. The Drakari retreat continued, and the Xylar people knew that they were victorious not just because of weapons, but because of courage, unity, and the heart of one human fighter. For hours, the city buzzed with the energy of relief and victory. Lyra moved among her people, offering words of encouragement and praise. Yet she kept returning to Jackson, watching him quietly. This human had risked everything to save her and her people, showing bravery, intelligence, and compassion beyond measure. Finally, she approached him directly. "Captain Jackson Rell, humanity has earned my respect today, and I wish to honor you in a way our words can express." Jackson shook his head. "I only did what I could. That's all any of us can do." Lyra's eyes glimmered. "No, you did more. You gave your courage, your skill, and your life risk to protect me and my kingdom. For that, you have my eternal respect, and my people's respect. We will not forget this day, or you." Jackson felt a warmth in his chest, different from pride or accomplishment. It was the quiet acknowledgement of a life changed not by power, but by courage and trust. The sun rose over the battered city, painting the silver towers and rubble in soft light. Life was returning. The Xylar people rebuilt with hope, guided by their queen and inspired by the example of a human who had given everything to save them. Lyra looked at Jackson one last time. "Humans are unpredictable." "Yes," she said, softly, "but your kind has heart, courage, and spirit. Today, you have proven that one human can make a difference greater than an army. You have shown us the strength of your people, and I will never forget it." "Lever," Jackson nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "And I will never forget you, Queen Lyra. The courage I have seen in your people, it is remarkable. You fought, you survived, and you led with strength. I am proud to have stood beside you." The Xylar kingdom was safe. The Drakari fleet defeated, and a new bond was formed between two worlds. One human fighter had risked everything, and in doing so, had changed the course of history. As Lyra looked out at her city, she knew the future was brighter, and as Jackson stood beside her, he realized that courage, trust, and determination could surpass even the greatest odds. Together, human and Xylar had proven that bravery and spirit were more powerful than fear, and that one life, if given fully, could save many. And so, the story of a human fighter and an alien queen ended not with death or despair, but with hope, trust, and the triumph of the human spirit.